Let me be very clear tonight. Any American that gets COVID, any American that needs to be hospitalized, God forbid, any American that ends up dying from COVID that is traced back to Joe's open borders, that's Joe Biden's fault. He is now officially putting American lives at risk with his open borders policies in the middle of this pandemic, and then dispersing people all over the country and not testing most of the people at all. No mandates for illegal immigrants.
The United States has a long history of framing migrants as diseased, with some of the first instances coming about in the 19th century. With immigrants coming in from Europe, Americans critically evaluated those entering the U.S. on Ellis Island under the notion that newcomers carried illnesses. Though there are instances in between, notably in 2014, conservative public officials and anti-immigrant groups claimed that undocumented immigrants arriving to the United States via the southern border carried the Ebola virus. However, according to SBLcenter.org, medical professionals of the time expressed the claims were based on innuendo and fear-mongering. In fact, the U.S. reported 0 cases of Ebola by November 2014, approximately 3 months after the anti-immigrant hysteria began. Later, the H1N1 virus, otherwise known as the swine flu, served as conservatives' next point of attack. In 2015, language seemed shockingly similar to today's right-wing rhetoric, as evidenced when Michelle Malkin said, quote, "I've blogged for years about the spread of contagious diseases from around the world into the United States as a result of uncontrolled immigration, and maybe the threat of their sons or daughters contracting a deadly virus spread from the south of the border to their Manhattan prep schools will." End quote. Again, no research backs such assertions. Since 2020, the new disease immigrants have been blamed for spreading has been COVID-19, though right-wing media outlets took to using Chinese or Wuhan virus. While at first targeting Asian food customs as the cause of the disease, Fox has mostly turned their attention away from anti-Asian rhetoric and has utilized inflammatory language to blame migrants coming from the southern border as the new danger of COVID. Inflammatory language, or language used with the conscious goal of stoking anger in people, has included incorrectly applied terms to migrants such as invaders, diseased, and dangers to a functioning society. According to Media Matters, during a 12-week period from March 22nd through June 11th of 2021, of the 1,366 total immigration segments on Fox, 605 segments emphasized danger by framing migrants as a threat to Americans, 149 suggested that migrants are an economic drain on Americans, and 35 peddled racist conspiracy theories about migrant culture as a threat to American culture. An additional 96 segments suggested that immigrants or migrant workers are a major infection vector.
Migrants are flooding across the U.S. border with as much as 10 times the COVID-19 rate as Americans.
However, there has been no evidence to support claims that migrants are super spreaders of COVID. Dr. Marcela Nunes-Smith, Associate Dean for Health Equity Research and CNH Long Professor of Internal Medicine, Epidemiology, and Public Health of Yale, spoke up on the issue in an interview with another news outlet.
Some of these undocumented migrants who are crossing into his state are spreading the virus. Have you seen any evidence to support that?
You know, I have not seen any evidence to support that at all.
The misinformation peddled by Fox News is a consequence of poor sources and the funding that drives those entities, as well as their anti-immigration agendas. Dramatized stories detail caravans with higher numbers of illegal immigrants than were found, and criminals that attempt to cross the border that are in fact stopped. Politically motivated organizations such as FAIR and CIS provide stories and statistics to aid in the fear-mongering, both programs of which have ties to Tanton, the leader of the current nativist movement. These stories on Fox, derived from politicized sources, often fuel the fire when it comes to anti-immigrant sentiments. As a matter of fact, viewers of Fox tend to worry more about illegal immigration and U.S. job security than their conservative peers that do not consume large amounts of right-wing media, a stark 32%. Why does this matter?
A new Gallup survey released this week showed that Americans are much more concerned than before about the issue of immigration. Over the last 2 years, there's been a massive rise in the numbers of people who want less immigration and a drop in those who want more.
Viewers are voters, and while profitable media outlets may offer polarized views on immigration, we must remember that this is not a new crisis, and migrants have often been the scapegoat for the U.S. It's imperative that we stop the spread of misinformation and inflammatory language against migrants entering our country.